You need to have that kind of a skill of telling a rather complicated story in a simple manner so that it seems like obvious. You were selling something till yesterday, but now that you have realized that this is not working, right? Take the new position, right?
To be genuine about it. Now you're talking about somebody who's who has a great idea, has a right pedigree, has in it that he can do. Just that he's missing one bit, which is about how to package it well.
We are naturally good at building, right? There's a reason why so many Indians are global CEOs.
Yeah.
Right? It's not just by fluke.
Yeah.
We are good builders, but we need to improve our ability to tell our stories.
And that's something which can be learned.
Absolutely.
Hey everyone, this is Jyoti Harsh welcoming you to yet another episode of CXO Speak, brought to you by Zotter, where we bring to you insights, conversations, interviews with the best in the industry. Well, I just cannot contain my excitement today because we have a very exciting episode lined up for you. In our studio, we have Anshul Gupta, the powerhouse of the startup ecosystem, who has this remarkable track record of launching and scaling 3 VC-backed startups. With more than 10 years of experience and having raised more than $15 million for his ventures, Anshul has been at the heart of several success stories, and his journey is nothing short of inspiring. He's the co-founder of Yellow Class, which is India's largest extracurricular platform for kids. Also of FastFox, which is a home rental technology company which was later acquired by PropTiger. Friends, Anshul's expertise goes beyond just building successful ventures. He is a seasoned strategist, a business leader who is known for his ability to build great teams and to craft compelling narratives. He's a master of storytelling, a skill that helped him attract investors, engage with customers, and build great partnerships. And that led him to his next venture. As the founder of Bharat Founder School, Anshul mentors several early stage founders in the areas of fundraising strategies, go to market approaches, team building, and of course, the art of storytelling. He believes that every founder has a unique story to tell, and he's on a mission to help them say it in a way that not just grabs attention but also drives growth. It's fascinating how he's helped so many founders craft and deliver powerful narratives that have resonated not just with the investors but with customers and business partners as well. In today's episode, Anshul shares glimpses from his professional journey. He introduces us to the art of storytelling and also shares golden rules for crafting a powerful narrative. So stay tuned, brace yourself, because in our studio we have Anshul Gupta in conversation with our co-founder Arun Aggarwal.
Welcome everybody for our next session on CXO Speak. We have with us Anshul Gupta.
Thank you, Arun.
A 3 times founder, a storyteller,
Okay.
person who has raised funds, built businesses, and took exit.
Yeah.
I guess a dream journey for a lot of entrepreneurs, budding startup entrepreneurs. And here we are, talking about the key secret recipe that Anshul possesses about how to raise funds and how to create one.
Okay.
Welcome, Anshul. Let's start with your journey. This is something that a lot of people like us think about. You've done it multiple times.
First, thank you, Arun, for inviting me over. Very happy to be speaking. I have had a very interesting journey, and I do feel a lot of others have as well. But it has been fairly fulfilling in terms of how it has panned out. You move along, you learn few things, you make some mistakes, learn from them, and kind of continue to build. None of us really can script the journey, right? I definitely have not been able to do that. But then things happen. Typically, what I have planned for never happened. But then whatever happened, and there are some shocks and some surprises, and some pleasant surprises. So it all comes down to a very interesting journey, and I think the surprises make it more interesting.
Interesting, and a lot of learnings that come along with it.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. With success and more with failure.
Oh yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm sure through the learning there would be pivotal moments that you would have come across, which you would be willing to share with us, which kind of created the whole story around what is the right way somebody has to express upon his idea, his journey, his story, which is acceptable to the person on the other side of the table as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think at the part of the journey or the piece, right? I think there have, of course, been pivotal moments, moments when you meet the right person with whom you can build, things like where you serendipitously, just get onto an opportunity that you did not thought was possible. Markets that open up to you and become visible to you. Again, a lot of this is not planned. A lot of this is not something that you had designed, but they happen. But yes, what I can tell you is typically when you look back, you can always make a beautiful story out of it, right? So at times, now that once, say, people, when they ask for my introduction, I'll say, oh, I went this and did this and then I thought this and I did this, right? A lot of it, hand on the heart.
Easy to connect the dots now.
I am only able to connect the dots now, right? I don't think at the time when I was actually doing it, it was like, oh yeah, 6 months there, 2 years there. It doesn't work out that way. But yes, your ability to tell a good story around it really helps you connect with the other person and kind of demonstrate value as well. So that's a big value and a thing that I guess everybody should learn because it has really paid me well. And I believe if so most professionals, especially if you are a founder, you need to have that kind of a skill of telling a rather complicated story in a simple manner so that it seems like obvious.
And I guess this calls for one of the story that our audience would be willing to hear from you. Amongst all the multiple pitches that you would have given and the pitches that you would have received, one such story that you would want to share with our audience, which which can be inspiring for us.
Inspiring, I don't know. I think just story of how you build it. Okay, so let me tell you this. I think. So I'll tell you the journey of starting my third business, right? This was essentially it's, and again, not everybody, not most people know this, but I built two businesses. My second business got acquired, and then we were part of the company that had acquired us, and then I started getting bored about being in a corporate, and that's when I decided that no, I need to start again. And we had started this new business, which was essentially around flatmates. My second business was also around real estate. So my third business, we kind of got an idea, and I could not think beyond real estate at that time. And I said, what is it that we can do? Something which can be very powerful online. And I built something around flatmates. Now the thing is, at that time, we could build a very beautiful story of why this is a great business, right? Now that I look back to it, I think it was an awful idea. It was truly awful. right? Things don't work out that way, right? So we said, oh yeah, you can do matching, and then people will be able to match to their flatmates and see they can live with the right kind of people that they want to live with, and all of that. However, it's a terrible idea, because getting a flat itself is a challenge, and then to connect that to two people who like each other and have the same budget and want to be in the same location and are starting out at the same time. There are just too many variables, and there's a reason why you don't have a dating for flatmates kind of a platform, right? It doesn't work that way. But we were able to tell a very beautiful story and raise a reasonable amount of capital from very credible people, right? And that was essentially because we told a good story. So the good part, or say the counterpart of being a storyteller, is that after a while you realize at times you use that power to do stuff which you eventually realize was not really worth as much as you thought it was, right? Now the interesting part is we kind of pivoted that business to a completely new business. COVID happened, and it was kind of a godsend. You said everybody went back to their homes. There were no flats. There were no flat rates. So we got an excuse to tell all our investors, "Ki boss, ye to gaya." Right? This business is gone.
It's a macro problem, not mine.
It's a macro problem, right? So see, I was doing the right business, but it was a macro problem. So now I'm forced to think of a different business. So I'm taking a step into a very different sector.
Interesting. That actually touches upon this interesting idea or interesting thought process of wearing different hats. When you're wearing a hat of an entrepreneur, it is my baby and it has to be the best one.
Yeah.
But as soon as you were now wearing a hat of an investor, probably you were starting saying that this is probably an awful idea that one has to work.
No, I think even as a founder, we realized after a while that it's an awful idea. But
by that time the fund has
here's
been
the
raised.
funny part. Here's the funny part, right? How do you get to a point where you are selling an idea? So if you're a founder, you are selling your idea every day, right? It comes to a point where you cannot stop selling it, right? Where like every day you start selling it to your friends, you start selling it to anybody you meet, you start
to your employees, to your clients, to your vendors,
even your family,
everybody.
Even your family, right? So how do you come to a point where you are selling it to somebody, and the next day once you realize that is not working, how do you take that reverse position and say, okay, whatever I was telling you till yesterday, forget it. Right? It's a tough ask, but as a founder, you must be ready to do that. Right? Don't feel ashamed. Don't feel guilty. It's okay. You were selling something till yesterday, but now that you have realized that this is not working, right? Take the new position. Right?
And be genuine about it.
Be genuine about it, and be okay about giving yourself some space. Give yourself some space. It's okay, right? You're not trying to cheat somebody, but your job was to sell that idea till you realize that there are fundamental flaws because of which you have to make a shift and do that.
But Anshul, this is pretty interesting that you're talking about. See, we always talk about perseverance as one of the key elements that a startup founder needs to have, and that then means that there'll be days when you are good, and then there'll be days of lows as well, right? How easy or tough is it to understand that this low is a temporary low and I need to
I wish there was an algo, right? And here's the hard part: you're on the money, right? How do you know that are you being perseverant or you being stuck? Right? To one person it may look like you being persistent. To other person it will say you are stuck on that idea. Why are you not evolving? The other person will say you are just being frivolous or frivolous, right? Or you are just being why are you not being perseverant? The other person might say you need to evolve.
Now, does a good mentor help in that case?
Oh, absolutely. I think a good mentor who can kind of help you think this through, right? At the end of the day, you are still the decision maker. It's still your neck on the line, right? So mentors help. right? But find somebody you can trust, somebody you respect, somebody who's been there, done that, right? And that will really help. And that in my mind is a very important thing, right? So if you are a founder, you should find somebody whom you can go to on days when you, at least on days when you know you are not able to think straight. And there will be days. There are days
There has
like
to
that.
be days. If it isn't so, then it is not a typical startup.
Absolutely.
You are not building something
Yeah.
out of the blue,
Yeah.
right? It is
Yeah.
something which is not being imagined by somebody else,
Yeah.
which effectively means that there have
It's
to
tough.
be days. There have to be days when
Yes.
you are doing good and bad as well.
Yes.
Now, which then means that the whole story is about these. There is a founder who's building a very nice story around what he's trying to build and is pocking it on a regular basis, making sure that the story is actually correct, and he keeps improvising onto that. How do you look at that part of the story? Because on day one when I started FinSkew, for example, the definition of startup for me was significantly different from what it is today. The kind of services that I envisioned that I would provide way back in 2014 is significantly different from what it is today. But I have been selling the story since then. And it's probably not very easy for me to go out and tell somebody, for that matter you, that hey, you do one thing, just forget about whatever I was telling you yesterday, right?
Yeah.
I need to come out to you as somebody who's mature enough, because next time around when I come back to you, share the same story again, you have to say, okay, there is this mature guy who's coming back and is not going to come back tomorrow changing that, right? So there is that human element, there is that
Sure.
smart element that comes into play.
Sure.
And how do you approach to that? I'm sure you would have come across that kind of a situation as well.
My own opinion is that most people are fairly forgiving, right? So if I meet a founder 6 months from now, or say somebody whom I met 6 months earlier, and I meet them now, I do expect their story to have changed a bit, right? Because think of any business, forget about startups. Even the largest businesses, their story changes over time, right? Today, you look at what an Amazon is doing, right, or what really their story is versus what it was 10 years back. It has changed.
Yeah.
So business by very nature is supposed to change. It's supposed to evolve. And I don't think people take you to a point where they say, oh, you said this, how can you change your position, right? Unless you are doing that on a daily basis.
Oh, yes.
Right? So if you are not doing it every day, then people will be forgetting.
And you have a logical reason to do
And you have a logical reason to say, hey, this is what I thought and this is what my experience has been, and hence I think this now. And that's okay.
Makes sense.
And it should happen.
Makes sense. Now, coming back to the core thought process that we were about to discuss here, which is about storytelling.
Sure.
And I'm sure you would be happy sharing some of your secret recipes around that. What is it that, over last many decades that people have been selling? This is something which has been there, right? We are talking more startup now, but it has been there for
Absolutely.
good few decades, if not more. What is it, what it takes to create a good story?
Yeah. No, so first, it's not a secret, and it's definitely not anything that I hold proprietary for, right? And there are so many great storytellers, right, from time immemorial, right, to today. And I think there are some rules to storytelling, and we just don't apply ourselves enough to learn those. But a founder, or for that matter, everyone, should learn those rules of storytelling. So I always suggest 3 simple rules for every time you want to build some kind of a narrative, right? And which applies to founders and to others as well, right? Number 1 rule, it has to be terribly simple. Now, if it is not simple, people will not be able to process it. Right? So if you have to oversimplify it, do that. Right? If it is a fundamentally complicated thought, and simplifying it will kind of diminish the overall say expansiveness of that whole idea, still do that.
Oh.
You cannot not have a simple story.
Hmm.
Right? The story has to be oversimplified.
Oh.
Right? So if Steve Jobs could say computers is the bicycle of the mind in the 70s and 80s, that is an example of an oversimplification, but a beautiful narrative building approach. Right? Let's say you can do things simply rather than say walking, it gives you leverage, and that's computer for you. Of course, we all know that's a very, very, kind of a compromised definition of what it really is, but it doesn't matter. It's a beautiful narrative, right? And at least it worked at the time it was being told, right? So rule number 1, be extremely simple. Rule number 2, when you are building a narrative, it should affect you both logically and emotionally. It's an important part. If a narrative is told and it affects you or it impacts you only logically, you will not remember it. You will forget. Right? The other person is unlikely to remember it. And if it is only emotionally, then it will not add up once the person remembers. Right? So there's a reason why you do not remember what you were taught in class 12, but you fully remember the story of DDLJ even today. Right?
Oh yes, yeah.
Because it affected you emotionally, right?
Oh yes.
So you can still narrate, Raj went there, Simran went there, and this is what happened, right? You probably would not have seen it in last 20 years, but you still remember it.
Oh yes.
Because it affected you emotionally.
Emotionally, yeah.
Yeah. So emotionally and logically, if you mix the two, then it's a very deadly cocktail. Right? So
the thought process that most of these storytellers use by adding humor at times to their stories is part of that.
Yeah, humor is a great way. It's difficult, right, to be humorous at times, but you can actually script it, right? So most stand-up comedians work on a script.
Oh yes.
They are not really as spontaneous as they like to sound like. Right? They sound spontaneous, but they are not spontaneous. So even especially, for example, if you're a founder and doing you're pitching it to investor, you can't sound funny, and that could be completely scripted. Of course, you have to train yourself to do that, but it's doable.
So you effectively bring the attention back to yourself, because
that's right.
If it is too much logical at times,
that's right.
It starts getting boring as well. Huh?
Yes, people will forget it. They will not feel for it, right? The mushy feeling will not happen, right? And my own philosophy is people buy primarily for that illogical, mushy feeling that they have inside rather than how they think, right? So, but logic is important.
Mix it
But if you can mix the two, it's deadly.
Got you. So
right?
We discussed narrative.
Simplicity, emotional and logical at the same time. And rule number 3 is, you have to answer your whys before you answer your what and how. So let me explain that a bit. People will buy what you are doing based on why you are doing it. Why is it relevant today? Why you are the right person to be doing it. If you can explain those things, what exactly you are doing and how exactly you are going to do it are things that they will be okay to kind of overlook.
Oh, so you're saying what versus why is important.
Yes. So what is kind of important, but what is going to change, how is going to change, why should not change. Why am I doing it? Because I am the right person. Why? Because this is an opportunity which is possible only today post, say, AI has happened. Right? Why you are the right person? Because I have already built an AI company for last 4 years and I am an IIT Delhi computer science graduate who understands AI at a very deep level and this and that. So I am the right person to be doing this thing.
Got it. So what you're telling me is that why is something that is a constant, what changes, we discussed that, how any which ways is going to change, we all know that it's not going to work the way we want it to be.
That's right.
Interesting.
So focus on your why. If you have a strong why, everything else can be taken care of.
Makes makes complete sense to me.
Yeah. So these are the 3 rules that I follow.
Okay.
So these are the primary rules. Of course, you have to kind of build on things, but if you want to be a better storyteller, just make sure you are kind of ticking all these 3 points.
So you say that a fundraise happens not when you deserve the money. It actually happens when you establish that the money deserves you, which means that you need to get into the shoes of the investor and understand why would he be investing into me. So let's just start talking about your experiences around understanding the investor, his business, his psyche, and how does that help a startup founder when he is on his way of fundraise.
Yeah. I think that's a very important part, which is understanding the business of an investor, right? Whether you're talking to an angel or you're talking to a VC, it's important to put yourself in their shoe and then understand why they are asking what they are asking. What is it that they want to hear, right? Think of it like putting yourself in your customer's shoe, right? So every time you're doing a business or trying to sell anything, you would say, okay, what is the need? The customer wants this. Maybe you are a company which sell fashion, right? And say, okay, yes, people want to look good. They want to demonstrate that they are of a certain level, and hence they would buy a suit, right? Or something, right? And this is the kind of thing that matters to them. This is the kind of budget that they will have. So whenever you are doing the same exercise with an investor, because effectively what you are telling them is that buy a part of my company and give me capital. It's again a very sales kind of a thing. So understand their business, understand why they are investing, what is important to them. And that is something that I realize most founders don't do. They don't invest enough time to understand that particular detail. And it's a big mistake, according to me.
And within the investors community, you talk to an angel and you talk to a VC and you talk to a private equity. For that matter, everybody would be coming in onto the table with a different mindset and thought.
Absolutely.
And that defines at what stage, what kind of startup should reach out to what kind of.
Yeah, and for that matter, for example, right? So you just touched it. I'm glad you did, right? The mindset that a angel comes and the same mindset of how a VC comes is very different. So there are strategies that works with angels that will not work with VCs.
Yeah.
So for example, angel, if I have to give you an analogy, an angel works it's like a B2C sales. Right? You go to a shop, you see a shirt, you say, oh, this looks good. And can I afford it? Yes. Do I need it? Yes. Let me buy it. Right? You really do not put too much of thoughts and you are dependent too much of how you feel about it. Right? Same, but if you go to a VC, that's like a B2B sales. So when you go to them, you'll say, okay,
my customer
let me see, okay, do I have alternative quotes? How much do I need? What is my budget around it? Whom do I need to get an approval from? So there is a whole process around it. Not to say there is no emotional content side to it, but there is still a process. It's like a B2B sales. It will take its time. It will have its process. They will have a thesis. They will have a process around it. They will have stakeholders to manage. Just like in any B2B sales, VC fundraising is a far more B2B event. Angel fundraising is a very B2C event. And hence it works very differently.
And that is where understanding the business, understanding their psychology will make a difference. But within the same type of investors community, for example, if I am talking to a VC, there are multiple VC options that I can have. The thought process and the psyche could change within the VC community as well.
Absolutely. So again, I'll give you an example on that, right? There are certain VCs where the team is very big. There are other VCs where it's a very small team of, let me say, the decision making, either there is a one decision maker or two people who come together and make a decision. Right? And other VCs, they will have a complete IC, they will have an 8-10 member team and they will all come together, decide. Now, if you are doing a business which is very moonshotish, right? Which is very radical. Now, it's very difficult to convince 8 people that this is a good deal. Now, not to say that all big teams require everybody to be convinced, but understand this, it's very easy for one non-believer to shoot it down even if the other 7 agree, right? So like, oh, what business is this? Yeah, I have seen businesses like this. They don't work. Right, this like this, and then suddenly the other guy who is excited, that excitement can dip. Now, if you are doing a certain kind of business, as I said, if you are doing a short business, then you would rather want to deal with that 2-member decision making table compared to an 8-member team.
Because the chances of you hitting it is much
That's right.
higher.
You can convince one person. The other part is you will not be able to speak to all 8 of them. So you will speak to one person and you will be able to sell. But then this person has to go and sell to other people.
Will he be able
and that will he or she be able to do that? Right? So this is where you would probably want to work with a single member or small decision making table compared to a large one.
And there's another angle that you would want to touch upon then is that what is the theme which most of these guys would be working around. So,
correct.
Yes, there is a psyche, but then there is a
Yeah.
theme, for example, the Gen AI.
Yep, thesis, belief system, experiences. So if you are, for example, building a company, something like which they invested in and that has tanked, so then, the bad news,
Oh, yeah.
right? They will not touch into it no matter how excited one of them feels. Right? Let's say, oh yeah, we tried this, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right? And it works vice versa as well, by the way. Right? So if they invested in a company which is now their star company and you go, which is a very similar kind of a concept, they will invest. So make sure you reach them while the star remains a star. because all startups have their crest and troughs.
So what you're telling me is that if there is a startup and a founder is out raising funds, there's so much of background work that he has to do before he's actually...
To be honest and to be fair, it's too much to ask for.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of it is something that you realize later that this is what helped me. Right? And the thing with VC thesis is it is evolving so fast that you can be sure that the thesis will change in 6 months. You're not sure what exactly will be the thesis, but you can rest sure it will change.
Yeah.
Right? So it's also means that you meet the right person at the right time with the right story. Right? So a lot of times the best way is to just throw enough darts and hope something will stick.
Which effectively means that, here as well, while this whole ecosystem is getting built pretty fast, some bit of, structure is getting into place. But if there is one single structure wherein a mentorship could be provided, could be available to the startup, specifically from an ideation stage to a stage where he has raised funds and the product is visible to everybody, is something that can actually add a whole lot of value to the whole process of raising fund, explaining the thought process, reaching out to the right set of investors, and then coming back to the business.
Yeah, I think you are absolutely right. Right. So there is a very sharp need for it, for sure, and it has kind of things have improved. Over the last 15, 20 years, over the evolution of this ecosystem. I think today more founders understand the nuances than before, but still these nuances have also evolved and they continue to evolve. So you do need support, and you need support from people who are not part of your everyday grunt work, because your everyday grunt work also kind of biases you. They're like, oh, this doesn't work, or this something, right? So one of the biggest bottlenecks that I see is a founder will come and talk about a certain idea about their business, and I'll say, no, this is the exciting part of your story.
right? But he'll say, no, that is what I spend 10% of my time on. This is what I spend 90% of my time. So it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. If the story is in the 10%, just go and
Yeah.
only talk about 10%. Right? So it's as we say in Hindi, हाथी के दांत दिखाने के और खाने के और, and that is how it works.
Makes sense. And actually, this is what you intend to do with the Bharat Founder School.
Yeah.
Right. So, would you want to share some glimpse of what you are doing with Bharat Founder School with our audience?
Yeah, what I'm trying to do with Bharat Founder School is to help founders become alpha founders, right? So in a very, in a nutshell, we work with builder founders who have proven ability to build businesses, whether they have, worked in a large corporate or even say a startup, and come with a certain level of credibility. And then we teach them or coach them, mentor them into all these details about raising, which would include building narrative, building your approach, understanding how to connect with investors, right? How to deal with that whole piece. I think for most founders, it looks like a black box, right? That they do not really know how to navigate through. And I mean, even say very, very grade A founders with a lot of pedigree, maybe a McKinsey, BCG based background, let's say a startup leadership position, right? Everything else, but they would still find this as a black box. And what we are doing is we help them think this through, understand, so that while they are building their business, they are also able to raise the capital that's required to take it to the next level, and multiple times, not once.
Oh, right, yes, and this adds a whole lot of value, because now you're talking about somebody who's who has a great idea, has a right pedigree, has in it that he can do, just that he's missing one bit, which is about how to package it well.
That's right.
Right? And,
that's right.
And you just reduce that journey time, the learning time.
Yeah, and I think this is something that we Indians are particularly untrained on. Right, kind of nothing really trains us to be great storytellers, or for that matter, nothing forces us to sell ourselves. Right, so unlike say a kid growing up in US, right, they have to write applications to get to college. We just write an exam and get through college, right, and then they have to find themselves jobs and go to the off campuses and go to companies and sell themselves in the open market. We have campus interviews, right? So, and then even at a so to speak post graduation level, nothing really forces you or kind of throws you in the pond and say learn to swim. Right? So that experience is missing, and because of that, I believe we need a little more extra effort where we have very good. We are naturally good at building, right? There is a reason why so many Indians are global CEOs. Right? It's not just by fluke. We are good builders, but we need to improve our ability to tell our stories,
and that's something which can be learned.
Absolutely. For that matter, there's this quote by Naval Ravikant where he says, it's something like this, right? Which says it's far more difficult and very, very difficult for a salesman to learn how to build because it takes a lot of focus, right? But it's far easier for a builder to learn how to sell.
Yes, it's more science.
That's right.
Less
scientifically, it is more, say, at an age, even at later in age, in say life, you can learn how to be a great storyteller.
Yeah. Interesting. Let's slightly expand this concept of storytelling and its impact on the businesses.
Sure.
So one part obviously is about your first customer. In this case, is an investor who comes in, put in money to you, but that's not where the story ends. That's where the story begins. A good storytelling, once understood, can have impact on multiple other areas.
Absolutely.
Your experience around that impact that could have in building an organization.
Oh yes, you have to do storytelling all the day, right? So what gets you to attract the top talent, right? So why should somebody who's credible join you versus the next opportunity?
Yes.
Why should people continue to believe in what you're doing, right? Business building is a tough ask, you know it, right? You will have, constant bad news coming from all around, right? The good news are far fewer and in between, but bad news comes quite regularly, right? How do you ensure everybody stays motivated? Right? You have to kind of tell them a story, give them a vision, right? So again, famously Steve Jobs, right? So all big businessmen and founders, leaders, eventually become good storytellers where they are able to summarize things, bring down the chaos that there is in the real world, and help people to see through a simple or simpler looking path to where you want to be.
So effectively, if one can cut through the noise, look at the thing which actually matters, pack it up in the form of a very clean message, that helps.
Absolutely.
That helps finding a good talent. That helps finding
Keeping
the
that talent.
The keeping good talent. I mean, that's something which is the most important bit actually.
Absolutely.
Right. So got it. Taking it to the next level then is it just about the startups only? Here in India, we are now talking about one big section which is about finding new ways to do the business, which is about in and around startup. But then there is a big mid-sized business that has bloomed over last few years.
Yeah.
And with economy growing like anything, it would have a direct impact in there.
Sure.
And interestingly, that is one area wherein the structure, so to say, even for that matter, an equity raise or others, is just not available. Yes, SME IPO is a way,
Sure.
but it is still something which is largely uncatered to.
Correct.
How do you think a nice storytelling thought process help them through the journey, scaling it to probably the next level? Because in our experiences at FinSQ, at Zoto, what we've seen most of the times is businesses, homegrown businesses, which are family run, get stuck at a particular stage.
Yeah.
There is one stage of revenue that they have reached. They're doing good. There is high potential, but they are stuck. Now they're stuck because of multiple reasons. It could be because of funds. It could be because of talent, as you said.
Sure.
The thought process that you apply for the startups, the same thought process applied to them. How could it have an impact on them?
See, it is. My sense is it's very similar for them as well. Now, there are 2-3 ways that it works, right? When you are able to articulate yourself and tell a simple story, you will find investors, for example. So you might have more private equity players rather than VCs. You will find the partners as well, right? So you go and want to probably expand a business, right? Get into a new geography, get into a new segment. All of that requires you to have the right kind of partnerships. What will allow you to have these partnerships? So that they will also come at the credibility of the founder or the business leaders that there are, right? And do they need a story? Yes. Can they sound and demonstrate more credibility by being better at storytelling? Absolutely. So those are few things which will work for them. And of course, if you go for IPO, then of course you have to do that as well. When you sell to customers, you need to do that again. So at any point of time, if you are able to articulate and give a good story, create a great vision, will you be at an advantageous position to the next guy who can't do it? Everything else being same? Absolutely.
But one thing that I've noticed in here is that at times it's just not about storytelling. It's also
Correct.
about having a vision or clearing that vision. So somebody who's could be called as a chief storytelling officer, if you could come up, hear the story and say that, you're doing great in all of these aspects, but there is that 10% that you just talked about. This is something which matters. Why can't you just look at that?
Yeah.
Why can't you start exploring a private equity kind of a setup?
Yeah.
The business structure changing from this to that
Correct.
might be able to help you scale better.
Yeah.
And hence, probably it is just not about storytelling, it is about somebody who could be a mentor, who understands
Sure.
the business,
Sure.
looks at it from a 5,000 feet height, and then probably help you create that narrative.
Absolutely. I think, and I think it also has real value, wherein even the promoter or the founder, they themselves can look at it from a fresh pair of eyes, because again they are caught up in the everyday grunt of the work, and you are not able to see through what really are the extension opportunities that are lying there, but are kind of not visible to you because you are too busy doing what you have to do. So that is also a challenge. So I think every business leader needs a mentor. There is absolutely no doubt about it. Somebody that you can trust, somebody you can respect. That's very important, because if you don't do that, you will not listen.
hear him.
You'll not hear him. Right? It can't be a job.
It can't be a job. Right?
It can't be a job. There's somebody that you speak to, and kind of, you don't have to agree with them every day. You actually should not, right? You don't have to, kind of follow what they are saying, but see if they can give you a new perspective. And I think even mentors need mentors.
Oh yes,
Right. So everybody needs mentors.
I am with you. Since our training days, we've one thing that we have always seen and observed is that in a room full of an entrepreneur and a consultant and an employee, the most wisest person is the entrepreneur. You might as well see that consultant has 10 different advices to give, but it's ultimately the entrepreneur who's gonna act on it and own the responsibility of it, and he has to be the wisest one amongst everybody for that matter. Let's move on to our next section, which is fun section, wherein we touch the personal part of the of our guest.
Sure.
So two quick things. Which is one book or movie that you would like to suggest to to a budding entrepreneur or a business leader to watch per your experience?
Okay. I love entrepreneur movies, right? It kind of course, it touches you because you can empathize with their challenges and their journeys, right?
Yeah.
I think Pursuit of Happiness is one such movie which really made so much sense, with the guy going through so much of personal troubles and still trying to make it with his business, which is stuck, and then something I absolutely love, right? So that was one movie. Books are many actually. One, of course, the Bible for most founders is The Hard Things About Hard Things. Everybody talks about that, right? By Horowitz, what's his first name? I forgot, right? So I think Hard Thing About Hard Things is one book that was very impactful even early then, when it tells about what are the kind of pressure points that comes to your life as a founder. The other book that I read recently, which has made a lot of sense to me, is Build. Right. Again, I'm forgetting the name of the author. I'm pretty bad at that. But it's the founder worked for Apple and then built a few businesses himself, right? And he talks about the stages of building businesses and what is it that will come. Team building, narrative building, product building, everything, right? And very high quality. So always recommended.
Interesting. And now, when somebody talks to you, when I talk to you, I can clearly see, the startup and the entrepreneurship and the passion around that in your eyes.
Okay.
What if you were not to do a startup?
Yeah.
what would you be doing?
I always thought I could have been a lawyer. Right? Of course, I got off that track.
Telling only one side of the story. Then. You would be telling one side of the story.
I always thought it would be more fun, right? There's another reason for that, right? I'm an engineer by qualification, right? I did electrical engineering, but I'm always extremely scared of anybody asking me anything about engineering. I'm also not a techie. I understand the business of tech, but I'm awful at technology per se, whether it is say core technology or even say coding and things like those. I never did it. I never found it very interesting to do coding and stuff. So I always felt I became an engineer by default. I was probably not, so if I was more aptitude driven like the kids today are, right, who do, counselors and all, go to counselors and all, I don't think anybody would have recommended me to become an engineer.
And you were talking about lawyer.
Yeah.
What kind of lawyer would you be?
Criminal lawyer. Yeah. I don't know, right? I don't. I know
just trying to-
corporate law. I know corporate law pays you better. But and criminal, the track is much more difficult. But I do believe I could have been a lawyer. I like building arguments. I like the whole, the process. Of course, I would be kind of. I have my own notions about it, considering I am not one. But
I'm actually trying to envision you, fighting for a strong criminal case of a high-profile person and building the narrative, which has to be simple.
Yeah, right. So yeah. So that could have been interesting, maybe in another life, if that concept is true.
It was pleasure talking to you, Anshul, today.
Same.
Thanks a lot, and I'm
Thank
sure
you.
our audience would have actually, would love, hearing your views and the 3 secret recipes that you talked to us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It was
Thank
pleasure
you.
being here. Thank you.
Just taking notes. So, be logical, be emotional, and most importantly, know your why. What an insightful conversation. It's fascinating how a powerful story can be a game changer, not just for startups, but for any business. What part of the conversation, rather, parts of the conversation, were aha moments for you? Do let us know in the comment section. And if you're game for such conversations, do subscribe to our channel and you'll be notified whenever we have a new episode. Don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn. You'll find the link in the description box of this video. This is Jyoti Harsh, signing off for now. We'll meet again in another conversation. Until then, take care and stay blessed. Thank you.